Hi, I'm Deanna James. I'm here with BC Nachovska. She's a licensed professional counselor, and we're going to dive into some deeper topics that I think are really important for the tattoo industry today and helping it grow. I'm so excited to have you here. This is a different kind of
Thank you.
episode that I personally really wanted to do because it's a hot topic in the industry right now,
Mhm.
and that is hazing and apprenticeships.
Mm.
And I know, as far as you go, you've been a person that I've known, a friend of mine for God, like
For a little while.
15 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're also a licensed, I already forgot.
It's okay. A licensed professional counselor.
I don't know why I
Or
couldn't remember that. I was put on the
it's
spot.
fine. It's a lot of words. It's 3 words. They're all long. An LPC or an LPC, if that's easier.
Yeah, and you are also just like always been one of the most emotionally intelligent people I've known.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
an amazing listener and you are incredible at what you do. So, can you describe a little bit more
Thank
about
you.
like what you do and what you specialize in?
So like as you mentioned, I'm a licensed professional counselor, an LPC. I've worked with children, teenagers, adults. So um, really not a specific specialty,
Hmm.
but I also have a lot of experience in working with individuals who have experienced trauma. Um,
Mm.
in speaking about apprenticeships or internships, as a therapist, you have to do one of those as well. So I did mine in Denton County Friends of Family. It's an agency that works with victims of domestic violence and
Mm.
sexual assault and sexual abuse. Um,
Mm.
so that's where I got started. Um,
Wow. Yeah. So that's I think that definitely you are a big qualifier to be able to talk through this.
oh, I don't know
And
about big qualifier, but I mean, yeah, I've
I feel
had
like,
some experience.
yeah. And I don't know if like you could tell I'm like a little nervous too because this is a hot topic. I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback and maybe a
Mm,
tad bit of bullying on the internet here and
you think
there.
so?
There's like lots of big opinions. But yeah, and like even talking about like my own apprenticeship too, it's a little
Mhm.
scary. So I appreciate you coming on
Of
here and
course. And
doing
also,
this.
in being nervous or anxious, I think that's totally normal as well. It's talking about difficult subjects um, and you have to think a lot about public opinion too and what people are going to say. And everyone's going to have an opinion
Yes.
too. Um,
Everyone has an opinion.
it's okay. They can give it.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
take it or not.
Just don't bully me, please.
No more bullying. This is the point.
I
Is
can't handle it.
no, no.
um, well, to kind of set up the whole premise of today and the
Hmm.
topic that we're going to be talking about, apprenticeships have been around for centuries,
Hmm.
um, probably before that. Especially in the Western culture, really became popular in tattoo apprenticeships
Hmm.
when tattooing became more of a profession in like the early mid 19th, 20th century.
Hmm.
Um, Especially when Sam O'Reilly invented the first electrical tattoo machine in 1891. It really started to pop up, apprenticeships and that whole like dynamic with mentor and apprenticeship. So that dynamic has always been around, even like with blacksmiths and people like that. The whole idea, though, of the hazing part of it is something that I feel like is a little controversial because back when it was starting to be popular and the tattoo industry was being popular and apprenticeships were happening, um, it was back when it was sort of an underground thing.
Hmm.
And it was known by like sailors, bikers, especially like after World War II, all those people that are building this industry and making it popular again. And the whole sense of apprenticeship and paying your dues and all of that was to weed people out, to earn your right to tattoo, to not give out
Mhm.
the information so easily because people were afraid of competition,
Mhm.
and really to give like a good trying to find and give someone like a tougher mentality so that they can survive in this sort of underground niche environment.
But it almost gives that vibe of like oppressive environment to get through
Mm,
in order to come out and be successful or earn it
yeah.
through oppression and abuse versus empowerment, which is what you're trying to change and shift and
Yes.
not engage in, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. I think now I understand, and this is me trying to give the benefit of doubt. Not everyone is like this. But if I were to give people the benefit of the doubt, the ones that are saying, no, you have to earn apprenticeships, it's been a tradition forever. We have to keep it this way
What does it mean to earn your apprenticeship? Why do you have to earn the apprenticeship? Right.
because it's a sacred tradition.
Okay.
And I understand if I were to think that they're coming from a good place with
Mm,
that,
right.
because I don't think those people realize, if you're not a cis man, that it's
Mhm.
not just the traditional hazing, holding a sign outside, doing stupid shit, tasks,
Mhm.
working long hours, cleaning with a toothbrush, all of that. But if you're not like a cis man, it actually leans a lot more into sexual abuse. And I want to believe those people that are like, no, fuck
Mhm.
that. Like, we got to keep the industry like how it is, tradition, and all that. They don't know that that is what's going on because they're cis man
But the point of an
too.
apprenticeship is to learn and grow and become a professional, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of environment of cleaning with a toothbrush, first of all, has nothing to do with the tattoo world, the industry. That instance, which is one example that you've listed, which I'm sure there's many more that are way worse than that.
Yeah,
But that one sounds awful, first of all.
it
I
is.
don't understand how that helps you grow as an artist.
Yeah. I think, speaking from a point of view of people who have a I don't even know
You're
how to
being very,
describe these
very
people.
careful.
I'm being careful because I do understand and love that you have to earn in some way to be a tattooer, but I don't believe
Hmm.
obviously in the abuse behind it.
Right.
Um I believe in working really fucking hard. Like, people who earn PhDs have to work really fucking
Right.
hard, but that doesn't mean that they have to, and yeah, physical labor or whatever, but it doesn't mean that they have to go through trauma
Hmm.
or emotional and sexual abuse to get there. I
Right.
believe, and what I want to talk about today is the difference between an apprenticeship where you're earning
Hmm.
your right to gain knowledge and to be a
Right.
tattooer, and an apprenticeship where it's abusive.
Right.
There's a
Well,
line.
there's a huge difference between one where you have a safe environment and you have supportive, empowering people around you versus the opposite. How how we function under a lot of turmoil and oppression and trauma, that's going to be very difficult for an artist to grow, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in survival mode.
Yeah.
If you think about a traumatic event that you've experienced or a time in your life where you've maybe felt depressed, your functioning is different, right?
Yeah.
You can't, you're not going to be as creative, as empowered to try new things. So if you're in a position where you're being abused and mistreated, you're in survival mode. You're just
Yeah.
basically functioning. You're not you're not going to reach your optimum potential. You're not going to grow as fast because you're essentially being stunted by the trauma that's being inflicted on you.
Right. Which I think a lot of people who like try to keep that in place are
Hmm.
afraid of competition.
Sure.
And
What are you projecting on the person you're teaching? What are you teaching them? You're teaching them
right.
that you have to oppress
Hmm.
and hide and keep your tattoo secrets
Hmm.
in order to be successful. Is that what success looks like? Is
No,
oppressing someone else?
absolutely not.
And I mean, I know a little bit about your apprenticeship, but
Multiple,
right,
plural.
the fact that you had to go through multiple ones to
Yeah.
find a safe space
Hmm.
to learn. You shouldn't have to look for a safe place to learn. You just want to learn, right?
Right.
Why are
Right.
you not allowed to do that?
Yeah. And that's why I'm not like so opposed to even, this is another hot topic, tattoo
Uh-oh, hot
schools.
topic.
Tattoo schools. I know we're going to be saying
Right.
a lot of trigger words, but I
Mm.
really like anyone listening, like I really want you to be open and really be reminded the fact that we are just talking about the line that crosses into abuse and why that's not
Mhm.
okay, and the people that like want to keep this hazing tradition alive. I don't think they realize what we're trying to go against.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, don't, you cannot tolerate abuse in apprenticeships. You can work really fucking hard,
Right.
but there is a line that is crossed. Um, but yeah, that's why tattoo schools, I feel like eventually could be really cool because you could still make students work really hard. And
Mhm.
just like anyone who goes to college, you have to
Right.
work really hard to go
Mhm.
through it in different ways other than sacrificing your mental
Mhm.
health.
Right. And also in thinking about like your experience and then you having your own apprentice and seeing that progression,
Mhm.
from uh, Cass, for example, look at how they've grown and how quickly they've flourished and been successful and
Yeah.
grown exponentially. But what's behind that is that she's here in a safe place. She has a mentor that's empowering her. It's not bringing her down. It's not abusing her, not making her scrub whatever. I don't even know what you scrub with a toothbrush, but that's insane.
Baseboards.
Baseboards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that you make
That's
a
crazy.
really you make a really good point because I think also because I've grown up in like a prime time of my life in early adulthood,
Mhm.
late
I
teenage
mean,
years.
you were also a kid while this was happening.
I was a kid. I was in this environment. You're right. And it's still hard to completely get out of that mindset
Mhm.
because in the beginning, right after my apprenticeship, I had that same belief as them as, well, I went through it,
Sure.
so other people have to go through it.
Mhm.
And they had no room to complain. And I very much embodied that. And
Mhm.
it took so much time, it took years for me to switch that off and be like, you know what? Fuck that. I had to
Mhm.
go through it, and I would love for others to not have to go through it.
Right.
And as much as I want to put myself in other people's position, and I think that's just somebody, as you know, with like empathy, you want to understand people and all of that. Putting myself in that position with Cass, like we were just talking about, why didn't I have them endure the stuff that I did? And the answer is because I I want them to succeed genuinely, because if I were to be worried about competition, I enjoy that because it means I get to be pushed to get better.
Sure.
So if Cass, is succeeding and is amazing and they have
Mhm.
like they're killing it. They're
Right.
surpassing me in so many ways. It's pushing me to
Mhm.
build myself and I think that's great. So I think maybe that's the difference is like some people aren't really looking for
Right.
others to succeed.
Well, do you pose a threat if you become very successful and if you're really good and you bring something new to the table? That could be a potential threat to that person who is projecting so much trauma onto other people.
Yes.
So obviously that's more about that other person, and for them to want to inflict harm onto others. That's not how you learn. I mean, even if you think about little kids, they have to have their basic needs met for them to go to school and learn.
Mm.
Or, maybe that's their only place that they can go, and school is the only safe place, and they, excel that way. But there's no way that a person can thrive and cope well if they're in an environment that doesn't promote that.
Mm.
It's just not
Yes.
possible, because you're just
Yes.
trying to survive the daily,
Yeah.
whatever you're being put through, cleaning baseboards.
Now, how do you stop a cycle of abuse? What are like steps or like things you could do? Because it's very, as far as like
Hmm.
someone who I think I've had one of my oppression, one of my apprenticeships to the other in some form. I've
Hmm.
had one of the hardest apprenticeships I've ever heard anyone have. And I was able to kind of get over it, but it was really fucking hard. I don't even know what kind of got me over that hill. There's so many people who are still stuck in that trauma cycle mentality. What is
Right.
like advice or something you can give to someone?
Well, and also not to put a lot of pressure on people to break that cycle, because a lot of times it may not be up to you to break the cycle. But I think what's really important for people that might be going through something like that, or in a personal relationship where it might be an abusive relationship, is um, having that one secure, safe relationship is
Mm,
usually what helps a lot of people. Um, whether it's a child that has, let's say, absent parents or abusive parents, if that child has one secure relationship in their life, they're more likely to succeed in life, because they had someone that was a good influence, or someone that they could attach to, that could help them
mm,
get through. So I would imagine that with you, while you're surrounded by dysfunction at work, I would imagine if you could think of someone in your life that maybe was supportive or encouraging,
yeah.
that made a somewhat of a difference for you to push through, and not engage in other ways of coping that would have been detrimental to your career, for example.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when there's no safe relationships, that's when it's really hard to get out of anything that's
Mm,
abusive or a
mm,
mistreatment of some sort.
mm.
If you have that one person that you could think of that maybe is just was kind, or had an encouraging statement or stance, then that is very helpful, of course.
Yeah.
Not everyone's so lucky. Some people have multiple secure relationships and safe relationships, others don't. So
Yeah.
finding someone that can be that secure relationship is something that can be very helpful.
And that's on the side of a person that is on undergoing the abusive apprenticeship.
Hmm.
Now, what about like, well, I guess when I talk about like the cycle of it, that is kind of stopping the cycle, you would think, if
I mean, stopping the cycle too is you being in that relationship. It is in a sense up to you not to repeat those behaviors. There's going to be people that experience abuse and then also abuse others, but there's also lots of people that experience abuse and don't continue that.
mm,
So in a
what are the
sense,
differences?
that
Like, why would someone continue it versus someone who won't?
I don't know that I don't know that I have an answer to that. I think there's a lot that goes on as far as um, anyone's upbringing and their environment.
Mm,
There's a lot of factors that can affect how you proceed. And again, some of that is having one, let's say, one secure relationship,
Mm.
or someone that you could lean on or reach out to.
Maybe someone to even be like, "Hey, that's fucked up," or "That's not
It could be,
normal."
yeah, someone to just like interrupt that thought process. Or when you're in a cycle of abuse, you're in it. You may not
Mhm.
be able to see it or really know what's happening until someone points it out,
Yeah.
in a careful, warm way, of course.
Yeah. And
In
I would stick up for
Mhm.
everybody. Like, I had my parents and friends be like, "That doesn't seem right,"
Mhm.
or "That's messed up." And I'd be like, "No, but, like, I this is what you go through." Like,
Mhm.
I stood up for everybody.
One, it's what you were told, right?
Yeah.
So you come in new and willing to learn and open to doing whatever you need to do to be successful. And then you're told by the people above you who hold that power
Mhm.
that this is what you have to do. You have to suffer in order to
Yeah.
succeed.
Yeah, and I believed it. There's a lot
Hmm.
of stuff I believe that I
I'm
grew
sure,
up
but
and
also you were a child that was very young,
yeah.
and also being around people that took advantage of that. So,
Yes. Yeah. It took a while for me to understand that I was
mhm.
even put in that position where I was taken advantage of, or even like thinking how my bad apprenticeship, like I know so many people have bad apprenticeships, but I'm
Mhm.
like, mine seemed at times a little more fucked up. Like, this
Mhm.
isn't, it took a long time for me to figure it out. And there's a lot of things that were normalized for me.
Of
There
course. Yeah.
was, most of the people that I worked under too, like everyone cheated on their spouses
Mm.
toxic relationships and like all of that was very normalized for me. Being in positions where I had to cover for them,
Mhm.
being in like just like not just like verbal abuse, but also like I don't even know what kind of abuse to call that,
Well, some
but
of it's probably emotion on an emotional level of abuse too, or
yeah.
coercion into having to be complicit to things that you don't, they're not your responsibility. It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I felt like I grew up really, really fast.
I would imagine so.
Um and really I only like changed my mind and figured things out like a handful of years ago, I
Hmm.
feel.
As you probably felt safer with in different situations with different people, maybe you started to feel safer, and then you could look back and think, oh, because
Yeah.
it is normalized.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was very normal of a culture,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
portrayed. And so,
I didn't have any even my best role models
mhm,
weren't perfect by any means.
sure.
But I still like till this day like feel some love for them. Like, there's some people that
Yeah.
I'm like, like, people make mistakes, they're not that bad. Like, I still have love for some of them, which is also
Right.
really weird.
That's a tough spot to be in, right? It's almost like I mean, it's an abusive relationship where they did teach you something, they gave something to you, but also in the meantime, while doing so, they also abused you. So it's a very tough spot to be in,
Mm,
to give up maybe the good that they provided and only see them for the bad that they inflicted. It's a very tough spot to be in.
yeah. Yeah, especially, like, I've been in this for 15 years now,
Hmm.
like, as long as we've known each other, really. When we met, I was
Yeah.
apprenticing as
You were,
much as I
yeah, you
could,
were
and
tattooing on oranges. What was it? Oranges or grapefruits? I don't remember.
yeah, yeah, anything. Sometimes, unfortunately, people we knew when I was 17. But,
You got to do what you got to do.
you gotta do. And also, like, to protect myself, like, I had to become one of the guys too.
Hmm.
And if there was pushback, I would be excluded.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to learn how to tattoo.
So you learned a lot of invaluable lessons very quickly, because you're like, if I don't do this, then I'm not a part of this.
Right. And I wanted a tattoo so
Mm-hmm.
bad. There was no doubt in my mind. And I told
Mm-hmm.
myself there are times where I would come home and every single day I would just break down and cry in my car and then go home. And I would be like, whatever it takes, I'll do whatever it
Yeah,
takes.
that determination was a big driving force for sure.
Yeah. Like, take my body, take my voice, take whatever. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
fine without it as long as I get to be a part of this environment because I
Mm-hmm.
saw the beauty of it too. Being an artist and seeing how it's so hard to make a living as an artist, but this tattoo industry is so incredible because you can be an artist and make a living
Mm-hmm.
and you can do what you want with it. It's a magical industry to be in that I appreciate so, so, so much. And I love the idea of healthy apprenticeships
Mm-hmm.
where you just have to work hard
Right.
and you don't have to go through abuse. Um, yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that anymore.
It's okay. We'll come back to it. It'll come back to us.
It's come to our attention that 75% of our viewers don't subscribe to our channel. This is kind of messed up because you're really missing out. We post a podcast every other week featuring some huge names in the tattoo industry. We post on YouTube Shorts twice a day, and we post weekly long-form videos. These videos typically have some amazing information and insight for tattooers, and sometimes it's just fun, relaxing content. But if you're here, that means you probably like amazing tattoos, and we have no shortage of those on this channel. So take 2 seconds and smash that subscribe button so you don't miss anything.
I cried a lot. Maybe that's the moral of the story. But yeah, whatever it takes. That was what I even told people like after my apprenticeship. And I still had that mentality because I was
Mhm.
angry. I was angry at
I'm
what I
sure.
went through.
Yeah.
And so apprentices that didn't go through what I went through, I'm like, I
Mhm.
had to do it. Why? You need to
Right.
go through it. I had to, and it's the way of the world. And
Or even seeing people that don't have to go through that and then not be grateful in any way or not learn from a safe apprenticeship. I mean, that's probably frustrating too. So,
it's still like sometimes I get like I still feel this kind of like I don't know if it's a envy or a jealousy or an
mhm,
anger when I
maybe
see
all of
people
it.
with really good apprenticeships
Mhm.
who complain about drawing or who complain
Right.
about working long hours, and I'm just like,
Do you know what I've been
"Ugh."
through?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I don't believe in earning it
Mhm.
completely. I believe just like earning a PhD or earning your college
Mhm.
degree, like you have to put in work.
Of course. I mean, with any trade, you have to put in the work. And if you're
Yeah.
not willing to put in the work, then the question is, why are you here? Do you really want this? But you
Yes.
shouldn't have to do it at the expense of like your sanity or your mental health
Yes.
or
Like there's a way to weed people out,
mhm,
which was the first mentality of hazing that was introduced in apprenticeships,
mhm,
weeding people out, but not by inflicting abuse, but by asking them to work really hard. That still weeds people out who
right.
maybe don't want it so
Mhm.
much or things like that. There's a healthier way to do it
Sure.
and still getting your point across about the tradition of tattooing and still like even in that traditional sense you can still have someone learn how to build a machine or build their own needles or learn how to sanitize like all of the stuff that's important to
Mhm.
you. There's a healthy alternative.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're talking about is a tattoo school. Like,
Mm,
I imagine you would start from the very basics and learn everything up until tattooing on
right,
people.
right.
Just like any other school, you start with the basic skills, but again, in a safe environment so that you can actually focus on honing in
Yes,
your skill set because otherwise you can't.
right. And also because like the people that I feel like are okay with not inflicting abuse in apprenticeships, those people want to see people succeed.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think if you're in the right headspace, you don't want to hurt people.
Right.
And a school can provide that. And for the people who are against it, I think they just don't realize the sexual abuse that happens in women in the
Mhm.
industry. I don't think they realize
Right.
what goes on behind closed doors, and that's what I would love to help bring
Mhm.
out is like a safe place, especially for
I mean, I think you're already
people.
doing that
Thank you. I'm
here,
trying to.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is I just want a safe place that everybody is able to work hard for their apprenticeships in a healthy
Mhm.
way.
Because you also have to keep in mind, people come in to work. Obviously, this is your studio, so people come into work and they have stuff going on at home in their own personal lives. So if they have to come in to a place where they're an apprentice, and that's also an abusive environment, there's no out. There's no safe haven anywhere. So I think what you're doing is you're providing a safe space
Yeah.
to learn and to grow. And you can really see how fast someone can grow if they're
Mhm.
in a safe place with a mentor that is encouraging
Mhm.
and a
And
safe
because
person.
I love teaching and I love
Hmm.
helping people grow, and not everybody is meant to be a teacher, I found.
No, no.
Like I
I
think
agree.
like you could be the best at what you do, but teaching is a whole other animal that
Hmm.
I've learned. And to be a teacher and to take on that role of being a mentor, I think you really have to ask yourself, do I really enjoy teaching others?
Right.
Do I want to see people succeed?
Hmm.
Is there any part of me that like wants to hold them back in
Right.
any way because I fear competition
Hmm.
or things
Well,
like
and
that?
I would imagine that as a teacher, you have to have a lot of compassion for who you're teaching and you want to see them succeed. Otherwise, maybe you shouldn't be in that field. So if you're a mentor and doing an apprenticeship for a tattoo artist, then maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
If you don't have compassion and you don't want to teach them and you're interested in just stepping on them and keeping them down,
Yeah.
that's not a mentor or teacher
Yeah.
or a good person all around anyway, I guess.
And which leads me to this, and I think it'd be great to hear from you, like signs. So, a lot of the times, people who are in these positions may not recognize the signs that they're in an abusive
Hmm.
relationship. What are Can you give us like some signs
Hmm.
to let us know or let people listening know like if they're in an abusive relationship? Because sometimes it's not even that like uh
It's not so obvious.
apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think of abuse, whether it's in a work environment or in a personal relationship, abuse is about power and control over somebody. So if you have someone who is trying to control what you do, how you do it, and oppress you, then that's a good sign that you're possibly in an abusive situation. Because when you eliminate the power and control piece of it, that's a safe place to be. Anywhere where you are allowed to express yourself freely without fear of repercussions
Mm,
or punishment, where your voice is heard and encouraged, that's a safe place.
mm,
In an abusive relationship or environment, that's not encouraged, right? You're
mm.
kept quiet, you're
Yeah.
not seen, not heard. Um, so focusing on that power and control
Mm.
piece is usually a good sign that you might not be in a safe relationship or work environment or friendship, whatever
Mm.
it might be.
So being able to so if you're someone right now and you realize that with your mentor in your environment, you're not able to
Hmm.
speak for yourself, that's a good sign, or you're afraid of.
I would trust that
Yeah.
feeling. If you're experiencing any kind of fear,
Mhm.
then something's off, right?
Mhm.
Because you should be able to, even though you're in a position, obviously there's a power difference between a
Mm.
mentor and someone that's a student, but it shouldn't be so oppressive of a difference where you're afraid to speak up or express yourself in some capacity.
Mm.
um, if you don't feel respected, I would think in your profession, that would be another indicator. And of course, if you're the more uh, clear instances, if you're being asked to do things that are
You're uncomfortable.
uncomfortable in any way.
Yeah.
But if you feel that power and control shift and difference, that might be kind of a clue that
Yeah.
it's not a safe place.
Yeah. I recognize too, like when I'm trying to think with you too, like other signs as well, and just something that I can throw in everything and everyone together. Like, what are the similarities? Um, Abusive relationships between apprentice and mentor or whatever. The love bombing at first is
Yeah,
that
definitely.
is like a similarity I saw repeatedly. Is even when I first got in the industry, I was told like, oh man, like you're gonna be so fucking good. You're gonna be like a rock star, and like you're gonna be able to like, yeah, you're gonna show all these dudes like who's boss, and like
Right.
there's
That building
like,
you up, but then to bring you right back down.
yeah. Then
Right.
like came the don't get a big head though, or no, it started like, okay, like no, I understand, like I need to keep, like I need to stay humble. I'm not that. And then it got into I'm shit. And my headspace was like, I'm terrible. I'm not good. Don't tell anyone if I feel like I'm doing good.
Right.
Don't show that I'm proud of my work. That I still have to fight.
Yeah.
When people give me compliments, I still feel like an uncomfortability because I'm not allowed to feel okay about myself. That is also a thing that stemmed from those apprenticeships
Oh,
too.
definitely. And I imagine like a lot of imposter syndrome comes up for you even now after all these years of.
Yeah, and it's gotten so much better. I have so much more confidence now than I did. But every once in a while, I'll still be like, the other day, I was like telling Colton, like, I feel like I suck. After a tattoo that I
Suddenly,
should have been really
suddenly
proud
today I
of.
suck.
Yeah, it's and I still like I go through those and I feel like I'm not actually worth anything, or like this is all fake, you
Right.
know? And that's, I think that's also a sign, and one of the things that people who abuse, they instill in you too.
Definitely. I would agree with you. The love bombing is because they want to lure you in, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of the power and control, because they want to lure you in by love bombing you. Once they have you comfortable and have you thinking that they're on your side, it slowly starts to chip away at your self-esteem, self-worth. And then it's a slow process with the with abuse that a lot of victims of abuse, whether it's personal relationships or professional relationship, you don't catch it because it's so subtle and over time, and it escalates
Yeah.
in how you're treated.
Yeah. So when people are like, well, then why did you do it for so long? Or why were you in it for so
Oh, my
long?
favorite question. Why didn't you leave?
Yeah. And it's because,
Well, why didn't they not mistreat me? Why didn't they stop abusing me? Why is the question, why didn't you leave?
yeah.
That's the victim blaming mentality that everyone, not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but people fall into, is that why didn't you leave? If it's so simple, right? Like then everyone would just leave, but it's not so simple. It's a very gradual thing that happens.
Right.
And sometimes it takes another person to come in and you feel safe and you maybe see it at some point.
Yeah.
And you're able to leave, but sometimes it's not safe to leave.
Yeah.
And also, if you leave, where do you go?
Right. So I'm going to see if I can feel comfortable talking about one of my experiences, which I feel like I'm a little more comfortable with because this person is in prison now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm assuming they're not going to be listening to this either. But I think what really messed me up, and like the worst kind of dynamic that I had in one of my apprenticeships, and I don't want to talk about like where or any, that's not important right now. This was, so it all started when I worked at the studio. I had many locations, and I was passed around like mentor to mentor, seeing who would want to teach me and all of that. And I was young, I was stupid. I was 19 when I was
Why were you, when you say you were stupid?
because I was naive. I didn't know much of the world, what to
You
look
were
out
young and
for.
trusting. I don't know that that's stupid, but
I was very trusting,
yeah.
is true.
You
Okay.
trusted that people weren't going to hurt you.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. And at this point, I was in this environment because I felt like I had escaped my last apprenticeship, because I was told that when that apprenticeship ended that I wouldn't be able to work anywhere in that area. So I left to go to, further away, to go to this other place. And so again, like whatever it took, I don't care if I needed to move to a different country, like I will do whatever it takes to be able to tattoo one day and be a part of this. So I did that. I'm in this new environment. And I feel like during my apprenticeships, I never felt like anything was helping me actually tattoo. I felt like I just had a paid dues. I was there as just a maid and a person people could pick on and like things like that. I was just kind of like used for whatever people wanted. And here, like, it was also hard to find a person to want to teach me and take that time to teach me. So I was passed around a lot. And towards the end of this apprenticeship that I had in this area, there was one person that, even though I was passed around, this person was like, hey, I want her. And so I was told that I was going to have a new mentor because they specifically asked for me. So I'm like, oh, awesome. I'm chosen.
Right.
I'm chosen. I'm picked. And I didn't know why. I didn't know this person like too well, but I knew he worked in this environment. I'm like, great, I'm chosen. And it felt awesome at first.
I imagine
And
feeling special. And
yeah, I felt special. I felt like he really liked me. A lot of those times, like, it was also, I was really used to like that boundary being crossed for like, as far as, I don't even know what to call it. When it gets more flirtatious, I guess. I could sense that boundary was crossed, which was fine for me because it was better than feeling hated too. Right. And he became someone that actually like put a tattoo machine in my hand. I actually like tattooed people for the first time. I learned how to put a machine together, kind of, not really. I look back, I'm like, he really didn't teach me anything. But I felt like I was actually moving, and this was great, which meant all the other stuff that was making me uncomfortable, like putting me in situations where I felt like I had to please him in ways, like pushing that aside. I could deal with that. I could do whatever he wanted. It's not too bad. And I got to a point where all of a sudden he went from being like this caretaker. He even became really good friends with my family. My family loved him. And there was a time where I hurt my back, and he took me home to his house, and he like cared for me. He was like, don't worry, family, like I got her. He took care of me. That ended up not even being like, we all know probably where that went. So yeah, he became like a person me and my family trusted.
Yeah, he was grooming you and your family.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Which is crazy to think now. I didn't see it. And the sexual abuse, like that was very normalized. I'm like, everyone goes through this, right? And I can deal with it. Like, I felt disconnected from, I felt disconnected from my body parts when it was
Yeah.
happening. I could separate myself.
Mhm.
And it started all of a sudden, like, I actually liked somebody. Then there was like a jealousy that happened.
Mm,
So I
mhm.
actually got a crush and wanted to like date and like go
Right.
out. Then there was like some jealousy going on. Then he started to become a little meaner.
Mhm.
There was one day where I woke up to a phone call and he pretended to be my boss and fired me and convinced me that I couldn't come to work, and then laughed and said,
Mm.
and then I saw like he was buying illegal firearms at the shop, like in the back. And it got to a point where like I finally recognized, I'm like, I'm actually becoming a little scared.
Yeah.
Like, it went from I could deal with the extra whatever abuse,
It
like
was
that's fine.
escalating.
Yeah, to I'm a little worried for my
Mhm.
life. And mind you, this person was engaged and had 2 kids too. So if whenever like I was taken back to his place, like they weren't there,
Mhm.
obviously, or out of town or something.
Right.
And so when I brought this up to the owner or person, I was like, hey, like, I don't feel very comfortable under this person. Can I go possibly with someone else?
Mhm.
And because I was passed around a lot, I felt like I was like ran through all the shops. He's like, if you can't work with him, like, I don't know who else you could work for.
Mhm.
You should go back home. And so I left. I left and went back home. And 2 months later, that person ended up shooting his fiance in the back of the head in front of his 3 and 4-year-old kids. And I just wanted to be like,
Yeah.
I told you. But of
Mhm.
course, like at that time, like I was a young girl, like nobody believed me. I even talk about this now and it feels like made up. And
Mhm.
but it's not. His name is Jose Rodriguez. You can look him up on Google or after this podcast. And back in 2012, I think,
That's a terrifying
is when that
experience. I
happened.
mean,
But yeah, so it's crazy because it sneaks up on you.
mhm. Well, no abuser starts off blatantly abusing. Like it's very, um, like I said, gradual, but it's also very, um, what's the right word? Um, Abusers are good at hiding that at the beginning. So there's like an escalation ladder with abusers where it starts off with the grooming and it starts off with being mm, someone who seems encouraging or empowering, and then slowly introducing the power and control.
Mm,
And when you mention the relationship or the crush, I'm sure that there was the control parts there that
yeah.
started to pop up. But that's when you said firearms, I thought that sounds like someone who was escalating to like a possibly fatal situation, which it sounds like unfortunately
Yeah.
was the
Even
outcome.
at that time, it was a hobby, or like it's like there was an
Sure.
excuse like I that I even had because I
Right.
want to. It was all again normalized, kind
Well,
of.
everything is presented in a way to protect the abuser and his actions, right? It's a hobby.
Yeah.
Or no, you misunderstood. So there's probably a lot of gaslighting that was going on too, in addition to the grooming. So there's a lot of moving pieces that are hard to dissect, especially when you're in it and you're just surviving.
Yeah.
Because for you, I imagine there was a lot of moments of dissociation and, like you said, not being present, not being in your body, just surviving, just getting through it so that you can escape it.
Yeah.
So even with those examples that you've given, I would hope that people can understand why it's hard to leave, because it's very confusing.
Yeah.
It's a very
Totally.
confusing spot to be in.
Totally. and I think like those kind of people harp on like empathetic people too, because
Oh,
they're easier.
for sure. And but also taking you in a position where you're very vulnerable from the beginning. He knows that you've had a hard time staying in a mentor in a an apprenticeship position, and you've moved around. So
Hmm.
abusers will target people, and they know, you know, I can take her in. I'm in the position of power. He could have had a very different approach and could have provided you a very different experience, but
Yeah,
he chose else,
yeah,
something else.
yeah. And it's so weird. It's still so hard to be like to convince myself none of it was my fault because I still like I don't I don't know how old I get or if it'll ever go
Mm-hmm.
away. And logically, I'm like I know it's not my fault, but it's crazy how like that really resides in you, like deep down. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of things like I could have. Uh, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, but also, like, nobody goes into anything like asking to be abused. So that can't be your responsibility either. You know, like, you can't be held accountable for something he chose to do. But
Yeah,
I understand why it's hard not to try to hold yourself accountable.
yeah,
But nobody goes into anything asking to be hurt.
yeah, yeah. It's true. It's crazy. I still feel like I was thinking I was gonna be like bawling and crying. Like I don't know if it's I just upped my medicine recently, but I'm just like still I talk about it and like I get like a little shaky, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like numb a bit
Yeah.
from it.
Well, it sounds like a really traumatic experience. So, I mean, I imagine you go through different feelings every time you probably tell that story.
Yeah, yeah, and I that also I think it's also important to talk about that because if anyone is experiencing things like that,
Mm-hmm.
like signs that one, it's not normal.
Right.
Um, and two, it's so important to find a different apprenticeship. Like you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be in that environment. Like I thought I wasn't allowed to say no, but
Mm-hmm.
you can say no and you can leave.
Right.
Although I know that's really hard, right? Like,
I mean, it is, but also you shouldn't have to suffer to succeed, or you shouldn't have to suffer to learn or suffer to live. Like, you shouldn't have to go through that to earn something, especially when it's education or really anything.
yeah,
But
yeah. So, yeah, I scratched the whole like do whatever it takes.
mm-hmm.
And I want to say do whatever it takes in a healthy and safe environment.
Or just work hard,
Work hard.
right? Because
Yeah.
do whatever it takes is like that mentality of no boundaries,
Mm,
and that's not safe. You got to have boundaries
mm, yeah.
because you can't do whatever it takes. That's a lot. That's a lot to do. Do whatever it takes. You know,
Right.
that's almost impossible. I'd
Right.
say work hard, but also keep in mind how you feel. And
Mm,
if you don't feel safe in a place, look for a place where you do feel safe, because those places do exist, right?
yes. They exist. Not, you don't have to be abused to get through to
Mhm.
become a tattooer.
Right. Well,
You can
nobody
work hard.
deserves to be hurt. So,
True. Yeah.
mm,
Um, so for people who have gone through horrible apprenticeships and lots of hazing and stuff, I just want to say if I can forgive and move past it and break the cycle, I think anybody can. Um, not to say like I have the worst story, but
I mean, I don't
it was
know.
hard,
Those were
and I would
those were
say,
those are awful stories, I would say.
but I feel like yeah, it was really hard for me to. It took forgiving. It
Hmm.
not. I don't know about forgiving. It took I don't even know the right word, moving on, or like,
maybe also like forgiving yourself, because it sounds like you hold yourself accountable on some
yeah,
level, but like letting go of some of that, not forgiving that person who.
yeah, yeah, like forgiving myself. And as far as like the silly abusive stuff, like holding a sign outside and scrubbing baseboards, and like, I don't think you need to do that either.
No, that's
Um,
not silly either. What's the point of that? Why do you,
drinking milk till I threw up, or eating petroleum jelly, or
oh my
lots
God.
of things. Yeah. Anyway,
What does that have to do with tattooing? I
nothing.
don't, that's
Or weeding them out,
in
weeding them out.
proving what skill set? Like what? That's just abuse. That's just more physical, emotional, psychological abuse. I mean, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't, you don't need to go through that. Um, what will it take for somebody who still is in that mentality of I did it, I need to project this on others? What are things that they can do for themselves to help heal?
I mean, they can go to counseling. if they're, but that has to be something that they're open to. So I think awareness, if you're not aware of the hurt that you're inflicting on others and you want to continue to project that, then there's not much they can do until they acknowledge that there's a problem,
Yeah.
and you can figure out maybe why you have the need to project that hurt onto other people.
Yeah.
What's going on for you where you have to project that onto someone else for you to feel good?
Yes. Yes.
But most abusers don't go to counseling. I don't know
It's
if that's
true.
shocking or not, but
Yeah.
they're not doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
and they'll defend it and justify it. So
Right. Right.
it's the people that on the flip side of things that go to counseling.
We go to therapy
Yeah.
because for the people who didn't, right?
Right, exactly. It's true.
So, yeah, healing yourself, going to therapy, figuring out why you have the need to complete this cycle of trauma, and
Mhm.
finding the difference between an apprenticeship where you work really hard and an abusive apprenticeship, knowing that difference
Mhm.
and continuing it forward on a healthier route. Or if you're an apprentice in that position, going somewhere else where you feel safer. I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest messages we can
That, and
tell.
like thinking, if I'm an apprentice and I'm receiving this kind of treatment, would I do what's happening to me? Would I do that to someone else?
Mm, yeah.
Sometimes for people, it's easy to like take it off of them and put it on someone else for them to really see it and have empathy for themselves.
Mm,
If you say, would I do this to my best friend? No. Okay, then why is it okay that it's happening to me?
ugh, that's so
Sometimes
big.
that clicks,
Yeah, that's so big. And yeah, because still, I want to like, some people I really want to give them excuses or say it wasn't that bad, or like it's okay, or maybe they felt this way, and like try to understand where they're coming from. But that's a really good thing to kind of compare to,
But
like,
that's a lot of compassion, a lot of understanding that you're giving people that maybe haven't earned that.
yeah. Yeah. So if you're like, "Hey, is this good or bad?"
Mm-hmm.
Maybe think, would you do that to someone?
Mm-hmm. Or if it was happening to your best friend
Mm,
or a
yes.
loved one, pick your favorite person. If this
Yes.
is happening to them,
Mm,
what is your immediate reaction? Oh, fuck that. No way. You
that's
know,
great advice. Yeah.
then put it back. Why is it okay if it's happening to you? It's not. The answer is it's not okay. It's not okay to be happening to you or to your best friend.
Mm,
But
that's a
if you
great advice.
externalize it, sometimes that helps people like connect to it easier than,
Yeah. Why is it
because
so hard to like love ourselves like we love other people?
if you love yourself, you're so selfish. You're a selfish asshole. And then you're not humble and you're like, oh, just
True.
full of yourself.
That's so true. That's so wild, right? Like we have to think of somebody else besides ourselves in order
Mhm.
to understand how to be treated.
Yeah, because most of the time, most people have more compassion for their loved one than they do for themselves. Because we're also taught that. I mean,
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
society, through how you were raised,
hmm
maybe
And
a relationship you've been
especially,
modeled.
and I think
So,
especially victims, because like there is a sense
mm-hmm.
of like, what's my fault? I'm bad. I'm tainted.
Well, and you've been told that through the abuse process too. So,
Right. That like it doesn't matter what happens to me, but other
mhm.
people,
Right. Yeah.
like crazy. I appreciate you
Mm.
talking about this with me.
Yeah.
Also, I'm
Thank you.
sorry, like it got heavy. I don't know if I even prepared you or told you for that was gonna happen. So I
Well,
hope
you
it
don't.
was okay.
Well, there's nothing to apologize for. I don't think you have to apologize for anything. If we're going to have a
Thank
real
you.
conversation and you feel comfortable sharing that, then thank you for sharing it. But you don't have to apologize to me for.
Spilling beans.
No.
Me trying to make light of a situation. I don't know.
How do I get out of here? Someone help.
Okay. Well, I think this was really awesome and I really appreciate you. And I really hope we got that message out talking about that boundary
We'll
to look
see
out for. Um,
in the
and
comments.
yeah, everyone fight in the comments. No, if you are for abuse, I will block you.
No. Yeah, use that blocking button. Is it a
love the
button?
blocking button.
I don't know.
I do. I love blocking people. And I actually like it's funny you're like you put that analogy of like, well, think if it was your best friend, but I've gotten more comfortable now with taking abusive shit in comments if I'm ever like this doesn't make me feel good, but I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I should delete it. I delete and block.
Yeah, you don't
Even if
have
it makes
to.
me feel a little bad and I can't pinpoint why.
You don't have to justify or explain anything. Block. You're
I love
nasty.
it.
Block.
Yes, we can have a discussion. I think if people really care and want to get their point across, they will in a respectful manner.
Right.
But yeah,
Because then they're just abusing you through the comments. So that's another abuser. So we're gonna block them.
yes, I need to be better about not taking all that personally.
I mean, it's hard. You're also on a platform where you're seen a lot. You're spoken about. So I can't even imagine how you don't take it personally.
I do.
I take it.
I take it.
There's a girl, I don't know if you've seen her. I don't know her name, but I don't know if she's a model or I don't know if it's an OnlyFans person. I really don't know, but she posts comments that she gets and then she posts the picture of the person because they're usually a lot of the comments are about her body, how they however they objectify her, and then she takes their comments, she shows the comment and then the person and how they commented on her
I love that
look
so
or
much.
body. And so I'm always laughing at those because it's like, sir,
Where do you get off?
why are you on here? What gives you the right, first of all, and second of all, please get out.
And usually, and I assume, the people that are going to be commenting on this saying everyone's pussies nowadays and bring, tradition back. We got to keep the tradition, and not getting the whole point of this whole podcast. I can guarantee you that their work is not work that you would look up to as an artist.
Well, it's a distraction. What are you distracting with this narrative and these outbursts? What are you distracting from? Let's look at your work, maybe.
We need to bring them on here so you could talk with them.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to talk to people that are in your comments being nasty.
Can you help fix everyone?
No.
Please.
Eden EDU is a brand for continuing education of tattoo artists and those in the tattoo industry. We constantly post free educational content on our YouTube and Instagram. We host in-person seminars, and we do our symposiums twice a year. The information we provide focuses mainly on tattoos, but we also talk about tattoo business, art principles, entrepreneurship, and more. Eden EDU was founded here at Eden Body Art Studios in Dallas, Texas, owned by myself, Colton, and my wife, Deanna James. We have an incredible team here. Nicole, who helps with event planning and organization. Ian, Lexi, and Chris are content creators who document and put out all of this information. An amazing resident and guest artists that regularly contribute to this educational content. Here at Eden, our mission is to revolutionize the tattoo industry. One of the most important ways we think we can do that is through tattoo education, enabling artists to make their best work possible. We firmly believe that if we can partner with tattooers to organize this amazing information and make it accessible, it's gonna make for better tattoo artists, better studios, and a better tattoo industry as a whole.
Shop owners who have this need to possess artists, who think about poaching artists, who gets really angry when someone leaves their shop. There's even like shop owners who tattoo the shop logo on everyone who works there for a
What?
certain amount of time and all of that.
Wow.
So what is that all about?
Maybe you need to tell me. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know the ins and outs of tattooer shop owner relationships. It
I
sounds like there's not well, I guess depending on the place, maybe there's not a lot of boundaries. What are
No,
the boundaries that
none.
exist? None. Okay.
None.
That's not good.
I know I would never do that. And for me, like the thought of I have an ownership of people or
Well,
artists
it's like
boggles
branding.
me. Yeah.
Tattooing the logo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's branding. So that's find another shop.
Yeah. Bad signs.
No, that's
Shop owner
wow.
wants to brand you, find another shop. There's no boundaries, find another shop. There's good shops out there, and people are
Right.
now recognizing the impact of mental health and their environment in the tattoo industry. Like
Mhm.
people are now finally like realizing that a bit more. So there are better places to go to.
Maybe like comparing what like a traditional 9 to 5 looks like in a corporation, for example, versus a tattoo shop. And what are the things that occur in a tattoo shop that would not or should not occur in I don't know, um, a hospital setting? Or
Mm, yeah.
maybe as far as hours, what are you expected to work?
hmm
What is your relationship with your boss in the studio, outside of the studio? Are there any boundaries there?
Mm.
So I mean,
What are good boundaries to have between an employee and shop owner, or like a employee and boss?
yeah, I mean that's a good question because there is a power difference, right?
hmm
Like you are paying them. Well, I guess with tattoo artists, you're not necessarily paying them, but you're employing them. So there is a power difference, and is that owner um, abusing that power?
Mm,
I would pay attention to that. Are you
mm,
expected to do things that you've done in your apprenticeship that are not related to your craft?
mm,
Um, are you
mhm.
expected to work um, endless hours? Are you getting breaks? I mean, all of those things that would
Yeah,
maybe fall into the categories of if is this humane or is it abuse?
yeah,
Um, are you, I think depending on the profession too, though, it's more lax because if you are a counseling intern, you may not be out with your supervisor getting drinks, for example, or
mm,
maybe I don't know, maybe that's different with apprenticeship with a tattoo artist. Maybe that looks different.
mm, mm.
I don't know.
Yeah, because
Maybe the
like in
lines
the
are.
industry, like I do feel like I'm friends with
Mm-hmm.
my I even hate to say my employees because I work with people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to say people work for me. I work
Right.
with people. So I guess like maybe that boundary is crossed a little, but
Well, and it's like, is there any preferential treatment because you have
mm,
a friendship? Does that bleed into
mm,
work? Do you treat one person better than the other because you're friends with this person but not
mm,
the other?
mm,
That could be tricky,
yeah,
favoritism or whatever.
yeah.
But
And definitely if anyone were to leave this shop and people have to, like,
you don't tattoo the logo on them.
no.
Oh,
I
dang.
just want people to be happy wherever they are.
Mhm.
And I understand like the moment I became a shop owner, it's a understanding that like people are going to come and go throughout the
Right.
years and we don't have like a high turnover rate. We have
Mhm.
people and artists that have been here since we opened about
Right.
4 years ago. Um and I hopefully like curated a good environment. But some people like for whatever reason, like they want to
Mhm.
move on to a different place
It
or
might
things
not be a
like
good
that, and
fit.
that's fine.
Right. It's not, it doesn't have to be a personal thing. It might not be a good fit.
No.
Just like if your first therapist may not be your last therapist, you might go through a couple to find the right fit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like I don't expect everyone to be here forever. I
mhm.
would love for them to because I really like
Right.
everyone. But it's understandable like people's lives change
Sure.
and sometimes you move or you want to go to a different state for
Mhm.
whatever reason or you have a better fit somewhere else and like that's okay and like I can't imagine like this mentality shops have like especially if they lose an artist and another shop nearby like picks them up like the idea
Mhm.
of poaching artists of or poaching people
Yeah.
I just think is a wild thought to me
Mhm.
like this need of possessing.
Right. Well, that's another way to control people, right? So you should be able to be happy for someone if they move on and not take it personally.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, especially if you are and I think a way for you to help not have that mentality is work on yourself and have like work on your confidence and your
mm-hmm.
ability to tattoo
Mm-hmm.
or make friends or build clientele. Like I think if the more confidence you have in your ability and
Right.
yourself, the less likely you are to put your worth in other people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Or to project your stuff onto others. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, what you're saying is that people have to do their own work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the moral of the
Yeah.
story?
That's the moral of the story. You got to do your work.
Do your work,
Do your work, people.
everyone. I think everyone should go to therapy.
Hey, I agree, but there's I feel like there's not as much stigma nowadays, but there's still stigma about therapy and
Yeah.
oh no, they can't tell me. There's a mentality of like, well, I don't need someone else telling. I don't know what voice this is, but I don't need someone telling me what to do or how to do it. They don't know me. But yeah.
Is there anybody that you or traits in a person that you wouldn't recommend go to therapy?
I don't think
Or do you feel
so.
like therapy would be good for anybody who's open to it?
I think therapy is wonderful for anyone that is honestly open to it.
Mm.
Um, because there's probably a misconception as to what therapy is to people that are not familiar with any of it. And so maybe there's a fear aspect that creates that stigma of like, you're going to go to counseling and someone's going to
Mm.
tell you what to do, how to be, tell you that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And the way I always think of counseling is just your opportunity to like get to know yourself better and to connect to yourself.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with going and a therapist telling you what to do.
Mm.
If a therapist is telling you what to do, you should find another therapist.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into red flags and therapists now.
Here we go.
Yeah, and
Well, in post we'll do the red flags.
yes, red flag. Yeah. What are
And when I
signs you
say
need to
we,
look
it's not going to
for?
be you and I to do the red flags in post, but your team. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. What are signs to look for when looking for a therapist? And I also want to talk about how to find a good one.
Um, I think you have to allow yourself to possibly go through some therapists, because you may not like the first person that you go to. It may not be a fit, just like a tattoo shop. You may try it, it might not be the right fit for you. Don't give up, just try to find someone that you feel connected to. So for me, the first start would be is looking for someone who is licensed. So you definitely want to find someone that has a license from an accredited school.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that are doing things that are disguised as therapy, but it's not therapy.
What would that be?
I mean, there's life coaches out there that are not licensed. If you don't have a license, if you didn't go to a school and do an internship, they need to have a master's degree at the least, and a license. Look for someone that has a license. They have to be licensed. If they're not, I don't really know what they're doing in the room. I don't know what that looks like, but it's probably not therapy, because you need to go through the schooling, you need to go through the internship, and get licensed.
So if you are looking at, I know a website is psychologytoday.com.
Yeah, perfect.
You can put in things you want a therapist to specialize in. You can put in your zip code. You could put in your
Right.
insurance, like whatever you need to filter out and give you therapists. What are like those letters and stuff next to their names? What are the letters to look out for?
I mean, so there's a variety of them, but you could go to an LPC, which is
LPC is
it's a licensed professional counselor. Those are my credentials. But
first
you can
thing
also
to look out for.
Right.
Yeah.
But you can also go to someone who has a PhD, of course. So you can do either or. I know that licensed social workers also provide therapy. And I can't speak to all social workers, but I know that there's a difference in training with social workers in the amount of therapy courses that they complete versus a licensed professional counselor, and the amount of therapy courses that they complete. So, but that's not to say that you might have a licensed social worker that's great in the room and can be with you and connect with you, as long as they're licensed.
Yeah.
That's my main takeaway, is that
look for LPC,
LCSW, PhD.
Cool.
But again, I think it's important to trust how you feel in the room with the person. If you're not vibing with them, I mean, maybe give them a couple of sessions,
Yeah.
but you'll know if it's not the right fit based on how you feel.
Yeah.
Have you had any experiences where you're like, what is this person talking about, or that doesn't feel right? Should they be saying this to if you're having these thoughts, then maybe it's not the right fit.
Yeah.
Because a therapist is someone that should be able to sit with you and be able to sit with you in your hardest times, and be able to sit with your pain, be able to sit with your happiness, of course. But if they're not able to do that, then they're probably not good at what they do. They shouldn't
Yeah.
be trying to rescue you, tell you what to do, deflect. So if you have a therapist that is uncomfortable sitting,
Like trying to, and is it like trying to fix your problems more so than like,
fix or rescue or like
mm,
minimize whatever you might be
mm,
presenting, those are some red flags.
got it.
Because
Okay.
if you're talking about your trauma and they can't connect and they can't sit through that, or they're uncomfortable, that's a big red flag.
Mm,
If they're trying to just be like, oh, it's gonna be okay, well,
yeah,
they shouldn't be doing that. They shouldn't
got
be
it.
talking about themselves in your session, like
Mm,
it's not their session, it's your session.
right.
So those are some, I mean,
Those are
pretty
good things to look out
blatant
for.
red flags.
Yeah. And how do you find, like, what are resources where you can find a good therapist?
Psychology Today is a pretty big one. There, I
Mm,
mean, you can find almost anyone on there. So I would encourage that,
okay.
because
Do you like BetterHelp or like any of those other? I see ads for that all the time.
BetterHelp has had some challenges from what I've heard.
Okay.
I would not recommend them.
So
BetterHelp.
Psychology
Psychology
Today.com
Today.
recommendation.
I think I watched a video on BetterHelp not that long ago. Actually, there's a lot of concerns with the therapists they have hired, at least in the past. Maybe now there's like been a change, but I wouldn't look for myself there.
Got it. Like what they weren't like licensed or like they
I mean,
were inappropriate.
yeah, I think there's so many stories that people coming out saying their therapists were late, showed up for 5 minutes
Mm,
of their session, or eating
wow.
in their sessions,
Oh.
or they're, have their children in this, like, just crazy things that, or just doing unethical things, or
Mm.
um
Okay, so
so
no BetterHelp.
yeah, so just I've heard a few stories of just things that therapists should not be doing at all. um Not saying that you shouldn't eat, yes, eat, but um there was just a lot of stories that,
Maybe not while someone's talking about their murder mentor or
right.
something,
Oh God. Can you imagine if can you imagine if you were just sharing that story and I just pull up my soup and I start,
yeah.
oh
Just
God.
start slurping like
Yeah. And then that would be terrible.
Uh, well, this has been awesome. I think that's all I got for today.
I think we covered an array of things. Can't remember what they all were at this point, but
I love the helpful resources. I love like talking about what to look out for, possible narcissistic behaviors, things like that, because it's really important and it's important for this industry to continue growing and getting better.
And I think another thing that a lot of us don't maybe do is just trusting that feeling, like when you have that, whether you call it a gut feeling or instinct, if you have that feeling that something doesn't feel safe, trust it and run it by someone else, see what feeling they get, if
Mm,
you don't fully trust your instinct. But
yeah, great advice. Yeah,
because most of the time you're probably right, your body is telling you something,
yeah,
but we tend to dismiss that. And
yes. That's also good for people who, after abuse, maybe feel betrayed and can't trust their own
Mhm.
intuition
Well,
and feel
yeah.
like they're not going to know signs after that.
Mm-hmm.
That's great advice. Run it by loved ones, friends,
Mm-hmm.
family members after that if you feel like you can't trust your own intuitions. But
Mm-hmm.
I assure you, like, after going through something like that, I feel like your intuitions get better because you know what to look out for.
Well, and also, like, once you come out of an abusive situation and you're in a safe place where you can look back, you could probably see some of the red flags that were not visible while you were in the situation. Because in the situation, you have to survive. You have no time to decipher red flags, right? You're
Yeah.
surviving.
Yeah.
Once you're out of it and you're safe physically, emotionally, mentally, you can't unsee what you see now.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think going into another relationship or interaction, those will pop up more. And the point is to listen to yourself when they do, and to trust yourself and allow yourself to be like, this seems familiar.
Yes.
I don't have to.
Yes.
I don't have to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
You know?
Don't have to do whatever it takes. You just can work hard.
Yeah, work hard.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're the best.
Thanks. You're the best too.
And that's it.
The end.
The end.